couple weeks have gone by since we put out our original offseason plan here on Steelers Talk, but some things have changed, and I've come to grips with a couple of different things that could be possible for the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason. So today, the Beast 2.0, my perfect Steelers offseason, updated for you guys here, just a month away from NFL free agency. If you are excited for this offseason, guys, make sure you click that thumbs up icon and help out today's show. It really does help out the algorithm here on YouTube when you click that thumbs up icon, and that puts our videos out in front of more Steelers fans, which helps us grow. So if you guys want to get this video in front of as many Steelers fans as possible, click that thumbs up icon. We greatly appreciate it. All right, now, the categories. We're going to get into roster cuts. Then we'll talk about contract restructures, contract extensions, 2 blockbuster trades that I'm proposing here, free agency signings, and then we'll finish out with my latest Steelers mock draft. So right now, according to Over the Cap, the Pittsburgh Steelers' projected cap space currently sits at $40.7 million for next season. Now that's going to move up and down depending on the new cap number for the NFL in 2025, which it'll probably actually go up from this number. But let's just go with this number for argument's sake here, and let's cut these 5 players from the roster. Let's cut Preston Smith, and then they've already announced they're going to do this. So $13.4 million with no dead cap. Larry Ogunjobi, you can save $7 million by cutting him. Thought he underwhelmed in 2024. Cole Holcomb, the injury stuff, I hate to do it, but you get to save $6 million by letting Holcomb go. 2.8 saved for letting go of Cordero Patterson, and 1.5 million saved for cutting Cameron Johnston. That Corliss Waitman had a pretty darn good season. Plus, he's cheaper to keep on the roster, so I'm going to cut Cameron Johnston. And then some easy restructures for the Pittsburgh Steelers here is Alex Highsmith and Pat Freiermuth. This offseason, you can save $7.8 million by restructuring Alex Highsmith's deal this year. And then with Pat Freiermuth, you can save an additional $7.2 million by restructuring his deal here during the 2025 offseason. So you take these moves into consideration here, and that means the updated cap number here is $86.4 million for us to spend on this perfect offseason plan. So we'll start here with a move that isn't necessarily going to affect the cap for 2024, or 2025, I should say, but it will down the line, and that is to give TJ Watt a contract extension. 3 years, $34.3 million per season. It's going to be somewhere around that range, guys. This would make him, right now, the highest paid defensive player in NFL history. The Steelers have already talked about how they want to bring back TJ Watt and get him that extension this offseason. I don't think TJ's taking anything less than the top dollar, so 34.3 over 3 years. That money won't kick in until the 2026 season, so it doesn't really affect us in this perfect offseason plan, but I do expect that to happen. And now let's make the big move of this offseason plan here, kind of the cornerstone of it, and let's trade for Matthew Stafford, because Stafford, in my opinion, is the best case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers at quarterback this season. All right, and agree with it or not, guys, the Pittsburgh Steelers and Art Rooney and Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin, they think that they're close to competing for Super Bowls. And, I know a lot of Steelers fans disagree with that statement, and that's perfectly fine, but the people in the building think that they're close. This team was 10-3 before the late season collapse, and they feel like if they get the quarterback right and they have a good offseason, that this team can be right back in the thick of it and compete for Super Bowl championship. So with that mindset in mind, I think Matthew Stafford gets you closer to a Super Bowl title than any other quarterback on the open market this offseason. And, I think that right now the Steelers are trying to do whatever they need to do or whatever they can do to try and get Cam Hayward a ring. All right, he's got 2 years left in his career, and they're trying to set this organization up to potentially win a Super Bowl before he retires. And, will they be able to do that? Probably, the odds are probably not in the Steelers' favor if I'm being completely honest with you. But they at least have to try and get it done for Captain Cam. And I commend this organization for trying to do right by Cam and trying to do whatever they can to win now and win him a Super Bowl. So with that in mind, I think Stafford gives this team their best shot to do just that, to win a Super Bowl. He did it with the Los Angeles Rams coming over from the Detroit Lions, and in his first year winning a Super Bowl with LA in his home stadium, by the way, which was a phenomenal run for him and the Rams. You take a look at his scouting report that I have on him. The arm talent is incredible. Mental processing, especially post-snap, is as good as you're going to see anywhere in the National Football League. He's a terrific scheme fit for what Arthur Smith wants to do here, throwing the ball over the middle of the field off of play action. One of the best, if not the best, play action passer in the National Football League today. And he's a clutch performer. He's been in the big moments. He's delivered a game-winning drive in a Super Bowl. If you need a game-winning drive in the playoffs, Matthew Stafford can deliver that. And then, some of the cons, he is over-aggressive over the middle of the field at times, which do lead to some INTs, and the mobility isn't going to be there. But the Steelers aren't asking him to run around and be Superman, all right? I do think he's still a top 10 NFL starting quarterback, and he's more than capable of winning a Lombardi trophy for a team that puts the right stuff around him. Plus, he's affordable compared to other quarterbacks around the league. The cap hit in 2025 would be $27 million, and in 2026 it'd be $31 million. So according to the rest of the National Football League and what they're paying their quarterbacks annually, that would mean the Steelers would be paying Stafford just top 20 quarterback money. All right, so that is a steal for somebody that I still consider to be a top 10 quarterback. And hey, the Steelers' window is 2 years to win a Super Bowl before Cam Hayward retires. How long is this contract? 2 more years. All right, so I think it's a perfect situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, I thought about sending the second-round pick because this is an ideal offseason plan here. But I think the only realistic choice the Steelers have, if he's made available, is to trade the first-round pick or to pretty much give him to the Giants, because I think the Giants will offer their second-round pick. So that means the Steelers would have to offer their first-round pick, number 21 overall, to make this happen. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Would you accept this trade if you were the Pittsburgh Steelers? Type A for accept or D for decline. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds, and when that happens, take advantage of that time. But let me know if you would send your first-round pick this year for Matthew Stafford. So now let's talk about a trade for Grover Stewart here. And Grover is one of the best run-stuffing nose tackles in the National Football League. The Colts might be looking to get some cap relief heading into the offseason this year. So we're going to oblige them. We're going to take on his contract. But because of that, we are going to give him a lower draft pick. So a 7th-round draft pick in 2025 in exchange for Grover Stewart. And, it's a low-value position. The Steelers would be taking on the money. So that factors into the equation here. And I think the Colts would be willing to just take a 7th-round pick if it means getting Stewart off their books, or at least if they want to let him go. Again, this is an ideal offseason plan. So you take a look here at his PFF grades, and Stewart has been awesome, man, especially lately. He was the 13th best defensive tackle, according to Pro Football Focus grading last year. And then in terms of his run defense, he was 4th out of 140 defensive tackles last year as a run defender. So the Steelers, I think, should be looking to get a true run-stuffing nose tackle, and Stewart is probably the most established and best overall option at their disposal this offseason. So for me, I would love to do that. I'd put him at nose tackle, which would allow me to put Keanu Benton at the 5 technique. And of course, you got Cam Hayward at the 3 tech, but he's not getting any younger. I think Keanu would eventually be able to move to 3 technique. But for the future here, in the next at least 2 seasons, Grover Stewart would be the starting nose tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I love this move because it allows Keanu Benton to be more himself. When he was at Wisconsin, he was a lot more of a penetrative type of player where he was allowed to get after running backs in the run game, use his quick twitch and his massive amounts of strength to get to quarterbacks. And here in Pittsburgh, he's been more of a nose tackle, and he's had to eat a lot of double teams. He's been forced to play more of a run-stuffing role. And I think he's done an admirable job of that. If the Steelers ask him to do that in the future, he can certainly do it. But I think he can be a game-wrecking presence at a more penetrative spot like 5 technique as opposed to taking on those double teams in the nose. And then you look at the cap hits that the Steelers would be taking on here if they trade for Grover Stewart. It's $12.25 million per season, but the Steelers could restructure this. So keep that in mind. If they take on Grover's contract here, I think they probably would restructure it to lower the cap hit for these seasons, but it's certainly something I'm willing to do to solidify the Steelers' defensive line this offseason. So now let's talk about free agency signings, all right? And, there's a couple different positions that the Steelers need to be targeting here. And, let's start with cornerback, because I think that, this is a position that you need. I would personally get a veteran, because Joey Porter Jr., I think this team really believes in him, but he's still relatively young. I would like to get a veteran in there to help foster his development, and I'm going to get one of the best man coverage corners in football in Carlton Davis III. $14 million per season. It's a pretty decent contract for a number 2 corner, but I think it's more than worth it. Dante Jackson was a huge liability on the outside in man coverage last year. The Steelers want to play a lot of man against teams like Cincinnati and Baltimore. Davis will allow them to do that. He's a Super Bowl champion with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He knows how to win. And I think it's more than worth the contract to solidify this defense. Then I'm going to go out and get Matthew Stafford's binky here, Cooper Kupp, on a 2-year, $11 million contract. And I think that in this scenario, of course, the Steelers might have to trade for Cooper Kupp, but in my ideal version of the offseason, the Rams let Kupp go, and he signs with Pittsburgh on a 2-year deal in free agency, all right? So this would give the Steelers their presence and kind of, that familiarity with Matthew Stafford in this offense. Kupp is still a really, really good route runner. He's really good in the slot, and he's one of the best run-blocking wide receivers in football still, which obviously fits with what Arthur Smith wants to do. Then I'm going to make kind of an interesting move here. I'm going to sign Isaiah Simmons to be the big nickel of this defense, so kind of a hybrid safety, linebacker, slot corner that can be a chess piece that moves around the defense. I think that this is a move that could completely transform the way that Mike Tomlin kind of uses his defense, more post-snap rotations. You can put Isaiah Simmons on tight ends to take him away in man coverage. He can play a safety role if you need him to. He can play as kind of like a third linebacker on third downs if you need him to play that role. I just want him in this defense because he's so versatile. I actually thought he had a pretty decent season in New York this past year, and I think that he would be a very valuable presence in this Steelers defense if you bring him in. Plus, he's cheap. Just $2 million on a 1-year deal. I'm also going to be bringing back Jaylen Warren. He's a restricted free agent this year, so it's unclear as to how much it would cost to bring him back. But I'm guessing a qualifying offer will be somewhere around $5 million, $4 million, somewhere in that range. And I think that that's probably the price that the Steelers get him back for. And then some smaller signings here. I'm going to bring back a Landon Roberts to play more of an early down run stuffing role, kind of a blitzing role. 1 year, $3 million. I'm going to bring in Jacoby Brissett to be this team's backup quarterback to Matthew Stafford. 1 year, $3.1 million. Cornelius Lucas, a good swing tackle in case Broderick Jones stinks or Troy Fautanu gets hurt. I want Cornelius Lucas, who can play on either side of the line. He has been a starter in this league before, to come in and play that role. Then Nate Herbig, another depth piece along the offensive line, to be the backup center to Zach Frazier. So now we're on to the NFL draft. And remember, we don't have the first-round pick this year because we traded for Matthew Stafford, which, by the way, I think is more than worth the price. But in round 2, I still think the Steelers get one hell of a player in Jack Besh, the wide receiver out of TCU. Now, Besh reminds a lot of people of Puka Nacua. Now, I'm not sure if I'm willing to go that far. Maybe somewhere in between Jawan Jennings of the 49ers, who had a really good season this past year, and Puka Nacua. But Besh is a good route runner with machine gun feet. His route tree's limited, but he's got super reliable hands. He's great after the catch. He's so hard to bring down because he's so big and strong, and he's probably the best run-blocking wide receiver in this year's draft class. So I think there's a decent chance he's sitting there at number 52 for the Steelers. I think he's a perfect scheme fit, so I'm going to take him here at number 52. Then in round 3, I'm going to take a defensive tackle to be a versatile rotational piece to start the year, but is eventually going to be a full-time starter when Cam Hayward retires. Darius Alexander out of Toledo, phenomenal player. If you want him to play the nose tackle, he can do that. If you want him to be more of a penetrative player, either at 3-tech or at 5-tech, he can do that as well. Great athlete, had a hell of a week at Senior Bowl. Honestly, I might be even a little surprised if he's not even here by pick number 83. But I think he's a hell of a player. He was a Sperry psycho this year, and for good reason. If the Steelers can get him here at 83, I think they should. Then in round 4, I'm going to address the running back position for the future. Devin Neal, running back out of Kansas. And Neal is a perfect fit for the wide zone system that Arthur Smith wants to run here in Pittsburgh. He reminds me actually a little bit of Jaylen Warren because of his contact balance, his vision, and his ability to kind of pick out the open spaces. In a run concept. He's got a great backdoor cut on wide zone concepts. He's a bigger version of Jaylen Warren, in my opinion. I think he's going to be a hell of a player, and I'm hoping he could fall to round 4 here in my perfect offseason plan. Then in round 5, I'm going to take Tyler Shuck, quarterback out of Louisville. And, when I watch Shuck's film, I don't understand why some people aren't higher on him. He is a really, really fun player to watch. Is he going to be like a future starter? I don't know. He's a 5th-round pick, probably not. but he's somebody that can slot in potentially as a backup for Matthew Stafford heading into 2026. He'd be the third stringer in 2025, and then he does have the physical tools to potentially develop into something that could lead to something long-term for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I like Shuck's game. Go check out his highlights if you haven't already. They are a lot of fun to watch. Then in round 7, I'm going to take Thomas Perry, interior offensive lineman out of Middlebury. This is somebody that was probably the biggest winner for me at the Shrine Bowl this year here in Arlington, Texas. He's coming out of D3 Middlebury, but he was going up against some of the best defensive linemen in the country at the Shrine Bowl, and he was stonewalling them, man, one-on-one. I mean, he's got incredible anchor strength, really nice foot speed as well. I'm really a big fan of Thomas Perry, guys, and I think, bringing him in as kind of a depth interior offensive line piece, who knows, maybe something comes of that. Maybe he's just a depth piece long-term, but he's somebody that I think I would want in the Steelers locker room. So take a look at my potential 2025 offense for your Pittsburgh Steelers. And by the way, this is the way it would be structured to start the season, not the way I think it would end up week 17. But Matthew Stafford would be your starting quarterback. Jalen Warren and Devin Neal would be your starting running back duo. I really like that duo right there. George Pickens, I did not trade him. And my ideal situation here is that the Steelers find a way to keep him around. He's such a great talent. And I'm hoping Cooper Kupp and his ability to be a true pro can really rub off on George Pickens. All right, so that's my hope. Calvin Austin III, I still think is a serviceable starting wide receiver as a number 3 guy. Jack Besh will start the year at wide receiver 4, but he will consistently get more and more reps as the season goes on. And then Roman Wilson, we'll see where he can slot in as a slot weapon throughout the season as well. Finish out with the 2 tight ends, Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington. Then along the offensive line, Broderick Jones, Isaac Seumalo, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Troy Fautano. Now, obviously, this group has a lot of question marks. Can Broderick Jones thrive at left tackle after struggling at right the last 2 years? Can Mason McCormick, after a full offseason of training on the right side, really accustom himself to that side of the formation and become the player that I thought he was going to be coming out of South Dakota State? And then Troy Fautano, can he stay healthy? Those are 3 really big question marks, but the Steelers believe in the talent in this room, so that's what they're probably going to go with. Then you get to the defense here in the front 7. T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, the best edge rusher trio in the National Football League. And then you pair that with, in my opinion, an elite interior of the defensive line with Cam Hayward, Grover Stewart, and Keanu Benson. I think that is the best defensive line in all of football, and that includes the Philadelphia Eagles heading into next season. Then you get to Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson as your 2 starting inside linebackers. I love that duo for next year. Then you get to the secondary, Joey Porter Jr., Carlton Davis as your 2 guys on the outside. Your big nickel is Isaiah Simmons. You have Minkah Fitzpatrick at free safety, Deshaun Elliott at strong safety. Beanie Bishop Jr. is kind of your true slot guy. And then you got Corey Trice Jr. as your dime backer. So I kind of like where this secondary ends up here. So it's the moment of truth. Let me know what you guys think of my updated Steelers offseason plan. Give me an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Is there any move you disagree with? Is there any move that you thought was a really good idea? Let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section. I can't wait to hear from you. That'll be it for today's beast of a Steelers Talk video. Thank you so much for making it to the end of today's show. We got extensive Steelers coverage all throughout the 2025 offseason, guys, and it's all 100% free. So make sure you join the over 75,000 Yinzers already subscribed to this channel by clicking that subscribe button right now.